welcome to the Knitted by Whitney YouTube channel. I'm here with a cheeky little pattern roundup video. I posted a podcast last week, and in that podcast I talked about a fun little project that I worked on, and I asked if you would be interested in getting a pattern roundup of similar projects. So here is that little pattern roundup. It is not a garment pattern roundup video. It is a little scarf pattern roundup video. I am going to be sharing with you 20 scarves that are not the Sophie scarf. Now, I would never be the type of person who would tell anyone what they should and shouldn't knit. That is not my personality, and that is not who I am as a knitter and as a podcaster. What I am simply trying to do with this video is show people that there are other patterns out there that fill the same need as the Sophie scarf. I just feel that that particular pattern is very oversaturated in the knitting community right now, and I wanted to showcase some patterns that aren't getting as much attention or as much love that I feel are really, really good patterns, and I wanted to share those with you today. So this is in no way a bashing video. This is in no way poo-pooing on a pattern. It's just showing other options that are out there. I have found 20 patterns for you today, and I have divided them up based on the size of yarn that is used. So I have some fingering weight patterns, sport weight patterns, some fingering and mohair patterns or fingering and suri patterns, DK weight patterns, worsted, Aran, and then one pattern at the end that is useful for any type of yarn and any size gauge. So let's get into these patterns, shall we? The first pattern on my list is the Rabia scarf by Chris Berlin, and I do hope I pronounced the pattern name correctly. This is a fingering weight garter stitch scarf, and I think it's absolutely gorgeous. What I love the most about it is that not only are you getting this really fun scarf to make, but if you want to give this to somebody as a gift, you can roll it up and make it look like a rose, which I think is such a cute detail in the pattern. I also think that the little stitches or cables, I'm not quite sure how it's done, that you do on the edges of the scarf that then create the look of the rose when it's all wound up, really give the scarf visual interest and make it look really fun. And one of those patterns that you just look at and you think, I wonder how that's done. That looks really cool. And that is why I chose this pattern. The next pattern on my list is Four of a Kind by Brenda Brayfield. This is another fingering weight scarf that is available in 4 different variations, and that is one of the main reasons why I love this pattern. Again, it's knit in primarily garter stitch, but the 3 other options of the scarf allow you to do different sets of eyelets that create a lot of texture and visual interest in the scarf. I really like that this gives you options when you're making the design, and you can choose which works for you, and it just gives you a really nice detail to your scarf. Let's say you want to make a lighter version of one of these little scarves so that you could have it for the warmer months. One of the options of this scarf that feature a lot of eyelets would be a really nice option to give you a lot of breathability and to give your project some really nice drape. The next pattern on my list is the striation scarf by Amba O'Brien. I do apologize, I don't quite know how to pronounce that pattern name. This is another fingering weight scarf, but now we're introducing some more colors. So the original sample for this design, which is in the photo that I'm sharing, is done using one main color and then I think 4 or 5 mini skeins that you change up throughout the design. But you could also make this an entirely scrappy project and only use yarn scraps. I really love that idea for this shawl because a lot of these types of patterns, these little neckties or scarves or scarflets, as I was calling them in my podcast, they're mainly meant to be a way to use up 1 or 2 really nice skeins of yarn in your stash, but I like the option of using it for lots of little bits left over too, especially if you have a lot of colors that go really nicely together and create this cohesive palette. I think it would be really nice to use a pattern such as this one to really showcase those little yarns and be able to get them out of your stash. The next pattern on my list is the Shima Shawl by Beatrice Maz. I hope I pronounced that correctly. This is one that is on my list of patterns to knit, and I have the perfect yarn for it. Although I love the pattern sample colors immensely, I am such a sucker for bronze and navy blue, I have chosen something a little more colorful. I won some yarns from Handful of Yarn in a giveaway a couple years ago, and I have been waiting to find the perfect pattern to use them. I have a single skein and I have 5 mini skeins, I think. So I'm gonna have to play around with the pattern a bit because I'm using more colors and a little less yardage of those colors. So I need to fudge the stripes a little bit, but I am very excited to take this on, and I just love this pattern. I think it's really beautiful. Although it is primarily the garter stitch style, I really love the slipped stitches going up the section of the main color. I think it just looks like, you know, the spine of a fish or something like that. Sounds gross when I say it out loud, but you know what I mean? Like, it just really gives it that visual interest and gives you a look of something that you would find in nature. And I really love that look. I think it looks really cool, and that's why I chose this pattern. The next pattern on my list is brand new. I think it only came out a month ago. This is the Small Fry Scarf by Samantha Guerin, and I love this design. And we're now moving into some sport weight patterns as well. So these are going to be a little thicker than the fingering weight ones. This pattern is really cool because it has a slipped stitch texture detail all along the scarf. And I think that gives it a really squishy, cozy vibe. And even though it's just a small scarf, hence the name Small Fry, I really feel like that's gonna feel super, super cozy against your neck. And I just love it. I think it looks really elegant and also really great. You could just throw it on with whatever outfit you want to put on that day. If you like the look of the Small Fry, but maybe you want some more size options, check out the Grab and Go Scarf by Sweater Freak. Also, how cool is that as a designer name, right? This is an all-over 2x2 ribbed scarf, and this one comes in 2 different sizes. I really like this one for the same reason as the Small Fry scarf. It's squishy goodness. Ribbing is one of those things that just looks cozy all the time, and I really love that. And I like that you have the option of choosing either a small scarf or a large scarf depending on how much you want to be able to wrap around your neck. So if you want to wear this in cooler months, maybe you'll make the larger size so you can wrap it around a couple times, but if it's the warmer months, you might just want the little one. The next pattern on my list is one that I've seen a few friends make, and although it looks complicated, they say that once you get into it and you memorize the pattern, it's a breeze. I'm talking about the Lalu Shawl by Sari Nordland. I adore this pattern because it just screams romance to me, and I'm a sucker for a romantic pattern. Although the sample is knit in beige, I have a friend that has made this in a dusty pink, and it is so, so lovely. I really like the combination of both cables and lacework to make the design on the shawl. And even though it's just a really, really small shawl, those cables are going to really give you coziness, especially when you're holding mohair with the fingering weight. I also really love this because you can wear it in different ways. So in the photo that I've included here, it's just wrapped around the neck, but Sari has also done a photo where she wraps it around her head, kind of like a headscarf. And I really like the versatility of this pattern for that reason. Speaking of Sari Nordland, I have a second pattern by her on this list. This is the Soul Sister scarf, and it is available in 2 sizes and made with both fingering and mohair held together. This is another super cozy scarf, and I particularly like this one because it uses that beautiful heart dip stitch. I have seen this stitch detail before in Rebecca Clow's Cargill sweater, and I really feel like it suits itself very nicely to this little scarf that Sari has designed because you're getting such a beautiful cozy fit while also having these really cute little hearts on your pattern without having to do anything super complicated to make them. This one again comes in 2 sizes, and you can have one that is just a cute little scarf or have one that is a bit more cozy for winter months. The next pattern on my list is the Duology Scarf by Claire Jackson of Perfectly Knotted. Now, this is one that I have on my list to knit, and I picked up the pattern recently when Claire was doing her one-day only coupon code for a free pattern. She does this once a year where she releases a coupon code that you can use to get one of her patterns for free, and this year I picked up the Duology Scarf, and I'm so glad I did. This looks like such a meditative pattern, but you're going to get some visual interest from changing colors. So Claire has designed this as a fade using both fingering and a fluffy yarn, either a Surrey or a Mohair, either one will work. And you gradually change your colors across the shawl, and I love that. Claire's version really speaks to me because it has those beautiful pale pinks and pale purples. It kind of reminds me of like clouds in the sky as the sun is going down. Oh, I just love it. I have seen some other examples in the pattern samples though, because there are people who have done them in more stark contrasting colors, and that way you can really see the different sections of the shawl. But I would probably go for something like Claire's with that very ethereal color. And I'm keeping my eye out for any future yarn purchases that might work for this shawl, because nothing I have in my stash works right now, because I really want something cloud-like and ethereal like Claire's. If you want another cozy fluffy shawl, check out the Bizou shawl by Sarah Opie. I came across this one a couple years ago when it was shared by Explore Knits and Fibers because the sample is made using their yarn. I really love the way that Sarah has combined using a fluffy yarn and a non-fluffy yarn because she has done sections that use intarsia. Now I haven't done intarsia yet, but this pattern really appeals to me as a first-time intarsia pattern because a shawl would be so much lower stakes than an intarsia sweater. It's a smaller project. I don't have to worry about fit. There are really only 2 sections that require intarsia, both on either side of that central diamond motif. And it's really easy to tell where you're switching because you're going from your fluffy yarn to your non-fluffy yarn. So this one also speaks to me because it has 3 different sizes. Now, I believe the pattern sample photo shows the largest size, so that would give you a really cozy wraparound shawl. But I would love to do a smaller version just to kind of like try out that intarsia and just like dip my toes in. I don't want to jump full feet first into the water of intarsia. I want to take things slow. But this would be a great pattern for that. And now we come to some DK weight patterns. Starting with the pattern you've probably been expecting me to say for this entire video, and that is The Simple Thing by Melina Brell. This is one that I came across from my friend B of the Maker B podcast. They made it, oh my gosh, maybe 3 years ago now. And I remember when they were doing their podcast and talking about that pattern, they were super insistent that this was not the Sophie scarf because it's almost a dead ringer for that pattern. But this one has a little bonus. This one's a free pattern. And not only is this a free pattern, there are also free tutorials on YouTube hosted by the designer to help you make this pattern. This one is so beginner friendly. So if you're out there trying to get into knitting and you want to make your first project, maybe you're only learning knit stitch, purl stitch, you just want to try your hand at something, this would be an excellent pattern to try because you're going to have some hand holding for that project. But if you're more of a seasoned knitter, you can just skip over those tutorials and just get going on the scarf. This is also a pattern where even though there's a recommended size, you could easily make this using any amount of yarn to whatever size you want it to be. You're only limited by how much yarn you want to use. The next pattern on this list is the pattern that inspired this list. This is Riptide 135 by Jennifer Shields Toland, and I think she goes by JST Knitwear Designs on Instagram. This is the little scarf that I knit for my friend Eliza for her birthday, and it's the one that I talked about in my podcast where I asked people if they would like a little roundup of some of these patterns, and hence this video is born. I loved working on this pattern because it was just enough visual interest with that lacework stitch going all the way up the length of the scarf. That was only a 4-row repeat, I'll have you know, that it was so easy to get into the rhythm of the stitches, and I was knitting it at a time where I was having a rough time in my life, and I really enjoyed being able to just sit and work on that project and lose myself to the rhythm of the stitches. It was so comforting to me, it was so soothing, and I really loved the finished result. I think I said in my podcast that as soon as when I put it on to take pictures, I didn't want to take it off and give it to my friend because I loved it so much. So there will definitely be another one of these on my needles at some time soon. because it was such a great pattern to work on, and I really loved how it looked. I loved how it fit. It was such a great pattern, so I highly recommend this one. It also comes in 3 sizes, so if you don't want to make the little necktie version, you can make a larger shawl version. The next pattern on my list is the Bessie scarf by Gabriella Treminio. I love this pattern because I love that eyelet stitch detail. I think it's a really beautiful visual element, and it also brings this type of a pattern into more of a springy vibe because you're having a piece of fabric that has a lot of airflow and drape to it because of those eyelets. I think this pattern sample is knit using a woolly yarn, but I think this would look equally nice with a plant-based fiber so that you would have more of a drapey, flowy scarf. But either option would be really great, and I think this is another great one for beginners to help get you started if you're just learning how to do eyelets or something like that. Now, based on the photo, this next pattern might be the longest shawl on this list. This is the Pool Shawl by Pia Trans. I think this is such a pretty scarf, and I really love how drapey it is. So that is, of course, down to the yarn. You want to pick a yarn that has drape to it, so maybe a merino silk or a plant-based fiber like a bamboo or a cotton, something that is going to give you that beautiful, luscious, flowy fiber, or an alpaca. An alpaca would be fabulous for this pattern. But I really like this one because it's another one of those patterns that has visual interest going up the shawl. So this one uses both textured stitches and eyelets to give you what looks like this really beautiful row of stitching going along the whole shawl. And it's again a customizable size, so although there is a recommended size in the pattern, you can knit it as long or as short as you like depending on the yarn amount that you have. If you want to make a little scarf, but you want it to have more of a vintage flair, I recommend the Sweet Scarf by Alongavec Anna. This is such a cute little scarf if you're looking for that vintage feel because it has tassels at the end. Now, I have cats, so I don't think I could get away with a tasseled scarf because they would just see it as a toy, but I think this is such a cute little scarf. I also think that it looks a lot cozier than some of the ones that I've shown so far. It really kind of has thickness to it, which just feels super cozy around your neck. So this would be a great option for winter months or any other cold months. And I really like that it has that tapered look coming down towards the point where the tassel is. A lot of these scarves kind of are asymmetrical where they increase on one side. The Sweet Scarf increases from the center outwards, so you do get that really classic triangle increase section, and then you knit the body straight, and then you come back in the end and do the opposite, so you decrease down to that same point. So this one looks a little bit different, but I think it's still a great option. Now this next scarf is a big scarf, but the reason I included it is because there is both the Sophie scarf and the Sophie shawl, and I really feel like this next pattern can kind of fit in with the same vibe you're trying to get with the Sophie shawl. This is the Gala scarf by Amy Palco. This is another new-ish pattern, and it's another one that's on my list to knit. I really love this pattern because you can develop a really beautiful color palette for this scarf. So it uses DK weight yarn in 5 different colors, and although I love the palette that Amy has created, and she's used mainly, and she's just used solid colors, I have some beautiful variegated yarns in my stash that I am excited to use for this pattern. I am going to be knitting this using my Craft Me Not yarn, Zelda yarns, and I'm so excited. So I purchased the quarterly collection of Zelda yarns the first year that Craft Me Not yarn offered them. So I have the first 4 from the first year, and I absolutely love them. But this scarf needs 5 colors. So when Sarah did her pre-order about a month ago, I picked up a 5th color, and I'll also put that on screen now. That is one of the colors from the second year. I didn't purchase the second year. I just got some in the update recently. So I love this scarf as one of those just like throw it on to feel cozy. It gives me, now this is a good reason, this is a good thing, but it gives me the Lenny Kravitz oversized scarf vibes, but in the best possible way. Although, that scarf that he wears that, everyone brings it as a meme in the fall, is like time to get out your scarves again and time to check your gauge. As much as I love those memes and those jokes and everything, I really feel like the Gallus is that type of a pattern, but wearable. It is all squishy garter stitch, so it's really easy to move through the pattern. And it just uses, I think, short row shaping to do the rhombus style sections to the scarf. So your first section is going to be a triangle, but then the following sections are all rhombuses until you get to the end again, and then you're doing a triangle-ish shape. I'm also considering, when I make mine, seaming the ends together to make this into a really giant cozy cowl, but I'll wait till I finish the pattern and decide if I want to do that or not, because I really feel like this would be a great option to throw over your shoulders, kind of like a wearable blanket scarf. So I love that for this. So that's why I included this one in this list, because gosh, it looks so cozy, and it would just be so fun to knit. I know Rebecca Clove, the Crayabea, has made one, and she just said it was so easy to fall into the rhythm of making this pattern, and I'm looking for those rhythmic patterns in my life right now, so I'm excited to have this one in my queue. The next few scarves are all worsted or Aran weight, starting with the Journey scarf by Tiffany Lynn. And I think this is such a cute little scarf because of the texture. Oh, this one has beautiful line work that I think is created by your increases and decreases, but I just love how it looks. And it is just another cute little scarf. It's not a larger scarf. So sometimes I'm at a yarn store or I'm looking at a pre-order and I want to buy just one skein of yarn. I don't want to have to buy a bunch. So you just buy this one special skein, and it's worsted. It's not a special fingering skein, it's a special worsted skein. It's sometimes hard to figure out what to do with it. I can only knit so many hats, and that's not quite enough for like a tall, cozy cowl, but this would be a great pattern for those special one skeins of worsted. And I have one in my stash that I might use, but I'll have to take a peek and see. But I love this pattern because it fills a need for finding a pattern to use up just a single skein of worsted weight yarn. If you have a couple skeins of some special worsted weight yarn, the Book Club Shawl by Gabrielle Treminio is a great option. This is another pattern that uses that beautiful heart-shaped tuck stitch detail, but this time it's surrounded by some other types of stitches as well. So based on looking at the photo, it looks like it is that heart-shaped tuck stitch, some faux cables, and some slipped stitches. And they look so beautiful. I really love the variation in this pattern. I think it's going to be one of those patterns that when you finish it and you show it off, everyone's going to be impressed by it because it looks like it's very complicated. But I think once you get into the rhythm of the shawl, you're going to be able to nail that pattern pretty quickly. And it just looks really cozy, and I love the shaping of it. I think you can wear this either as like a nice shawl over your shoulders or tie it around your neck for some more cozy vibes. The next pattern on my list is the Sidelong Shawl by MC Jablonski of Blame the Knots. I really love this pattern because this one uses fisherman's rib, which to me is one of the squishiest and coziest fabrics that you can make with knitting. It looks very similar to brioche, but it's made using a different technique, but you still get that really squishy, cozy vibe to it, and I love that. I also love that this pattern sample uses some easily accessible big box store affordable yarn. It uses some Lion brand wool to make this pattern, and I really like that makes it feel like a more accessible pattern, and it shows that you don't need to only use your fancy indie dyed yarn for these types of projects. You can also just make a really great wardrobe staple out of a big box store type of yarn that is just commercially dyed, and you pick a color that you really like that goes with your wardrobe. I feel like you would get a lot of wear out of this design. I also feel like the squishiness of that fisherman's wool is going to be so cozy in the winter and the fall. And I know here in Canada, I would get a ton of wear out of a shawl like that. Now the last pattern on my list is one that is recommended for any size yarn and any gauge. This one is Butterflies Flying Out of Your Stash Box by Aran, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. This is also one of the more inventive types of these shawls that I have seen. What I really love about this pattern is that butterfly motif, which is made entirely using cables. I just think it's so creative and so unique. I haven't seen anything else like this on shawls in my past few searches on Ravelry and in my travels on the internet. So I think this one is incredibly unique and I really, really love it. I also love the cabled edging to the shawl. That gives it a really finessed edging. It makes it look really, really chic. I think this is going to be a really fun pattern to do. I'm not quite sure how it works with the different yarn, different gauge options. I haven't bought the pattern, so I don't know exactly. But I do love that that is an option with this pattern, and you can create something that is entirely unique because it is your yarn, your size. You decide how big you want it to be. I just think this is a great pattern to really play with your creativity and come up with something really, really special. And that wraps up this cheeky little pattern roundup of 20 little scarves that are not the Sophie scarf. I really hope you enjoyed this list and I hope you found something that you liked on it, or if you know someone else who might like this, pass this video on to them. If you are new here, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. It really means a lot to me. While you're here, it would really help my channel if you could like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit that bell icon to be notified whenever I release new videos. I mainly do podcast episodes and pattern roundup videos such as this, but I also have some other special gems on my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all take care and happy knitting!